In the solve it, you can conclude that a square must contain a certain number if you can eliminate the other three numbers as possibilities. This type of reasoning is called indirect reasoning. In indirect reasoning, all possibilities are considered, and then all but one are proved false. The remaining possibility must be true.
Your friend Ted called. Or maybe it was Tom.
Ted or Tom? Which one was it?
I don't know, you figure it out.
So, it's either Ted or Tom. I don't know where Tom is right now, but I know that Ted is at soccer practice. Well, since it couldn't have been Ted that called, it must have been Tom. Good thing I could eliminate one of the possibilities. Let's move on. This video is going to take a lot of editing. A proof involving indirect reasoning is an indirect proof. Often, in an indirect proof, a statement and its negation are the only possibilities. When you see that one of these possibilities leads to a conclusion that contradicts a fact you know to be true, you can eliminate that possibility. For this reason, indirect proof is sometimes called proof by contradiction. This leads us to the key concept, writing an indirect proof. Step 1. State as a temporary assumption the opposite, or the negation, of what you want to prove. Step 2. Show that this temporary assumption leads to a contradiction. Step 3. Conclude that the temporary assumption must be false and that what you want to prove must be true. In the first step of an indirect proof, you assume as true the opposite of what you want to prove. Problem 1. Writing the first step of an indirect proof. Suppose you want to write an indirect proof of each statement. As the first step of the proof, what would you assume? A says an integer n is divisible by 5. Well, the opposite of is divisible by is not divisible by. So our first step would be to assume temporarily that n is not divisible by 5. B, you do not have soccer practice today. The opposite of do not have is do have. So assume temporarily that you do have soccer practice today. Your turn. Suppose you want to write an indirect proof of the statement triangle BOX is not acute. As the first step of the proof, what would you assume? And B, suppose you want to write an indirect proof of the statement at least one pair of shoes you bought cost more than $25. As the first step of the proof, what would you assume?